Hello everyone and welcome back to Old World. We are live once more. Whoa, sorry. We are live once more with another 2025, no, 2026, brand new year. 2026 community tournament match, part 2 of Fiddler versus Ant. With the Babylonians facing the Hittites. And if I recall correctly, the Hittites are pressuring, or about to pressure, because I think the Babylonians are gaining a huge lead. So let's do a quick review, or at least a moderate lead. Yeah, no, this is a big lead. All right, so turn 45, we have 23 science coming in per turn versus 71 science for the Hittites. Overall, science invested in the tech tree at this stage is 2,300 for the Babylonians versus 1,000 for the Hittites. So my thinking is, if we look over here to the military score, yes, Babylonia is rising, but I'm thinking that maybe, perhaps, the Hittite strategy here is most of the power of Babylon is concentrated up here. It's primarily ranged units. So perhaps we're thinking if we can we have a road here as the Hittites. If I recall, if I hop over here, this road is marked for going towards this state, towards Larsa. There's lots of scrubs, there's some forest, so you could kind of be kind of defensible in there. My thinking is perhaps Ant is wondering, should I attack now before Fiddler gets too powerful? Because Fiddler's been erudite to him for pretty much the entire game. And with 22 science per turn on turn 45, we're really showing not much sign or hope of catching up. And of course, Babylon has 4 laws now as well, which could lead towards another power spike. I recall we have a very unlucky ruler on the throne. Could definitely use an abdication to get rid of her. But outside of that, my thinking is, the one thing that we know as the Hittites for sure is that Babylon is still similar to us. So maybe we have a window before they get even stronger, before they get their 6 strength units. We know they're not strong in culture yet, so they don't have unique units on the board. We know we're gonna be strong soon up here in Funky Town. So my thinking is that the Hittites are trying to do what seems like a potential last-ditch gambit. Or maybe they think they're in a strong position to attack, period. Again, your opponent's similar. But by being erudite, they're the danger of getting outmatched. The Babylonians have bow in 2 turns, which means archers. And they already have machinery, which means onagers coming out. So I believe this could be a pretty quick session. In fact, we already have an onager out with Sentinel, making its way towards Larsa, and that's going to be pretty solid deterrent. Because if we look at that, are our players not at war yet? That's funny, they're not even at war yet. You have a Babylonian schemer all game and never declared war on the Hittites. That's okay. You do get an order per turn, though, whenever you're at war, so it would have been an easy way to get an extra order per turn for the Babylonians. But yeah, this is a easy way to get about 9 damage, probably 7-ish in this scrub or woods. And then there's just kind of no way that the Hittites will break into Babylon. Then Babylon has the choice. Do they sit back, wonder spam, and go for points? Or do they start onager creeping to their opponent and kind of show their hand, show their strength, and flex the fact that, hey, I can end this game. We have a spear coming out. Spear upgrade for the Hittites. Might see a couple of them. No, we're advancing with the warrior. Yeah, this looks like a full speed attack here. 3 tacticians and a commander, and a zealot, so lots of generals. The tacticians won't do too much. I mean, there's 3 warriors in Babylon, and another one coming out, so, I mean, yeah, they'll come in handy. And what's fun is the Babylon can actually see all of this because of the invisible schemer. I do kind of like this. We don't really have the science for it, but again, sometimes we reach a point where even the bad option feels like the only option. So I kind of like the orders boost because as we creep towards our opponent, whether this order boost will be ready in time for our alpha move, or whether it comes out in the midst of battle, an extra 20 turns will basically, an extra 20 orders will basically double our order for a round. So this feels pretty decently timed for the situation. Mostly I'm not, like, jumping for joy because, again, we have not the best science, and we could use, in fact, honestly, we could use spoke to wheel, because we could use chariots to deal with the current situation. Babylon's going to have primarily archers, going to have siege showing up shortly, which, of course, we as the Hittites don't know about that. But one thing that will help equalize would be chariots. But really, I think Ant is going to try their best to just kind of push forward, fight a battle, see how it goes, and perhaps, if it doesn't go well, maybe offer his concession. It also depends on if he's able to read the tooltips and the board state. Depending on the experience level of a new multiplayer gamer, they might not even be aware of how to tell if they're behind in science or power than their opponent. He could be advancing this force purely off of just looking at what he sees here. But in about one more turn, we're going to have 4 archers here if we want them. Wouldn't be surprised if the Babylonians decide to chop next turn with one of these workers. Oh, and he just got an event that secured us archers combo this turn. So we're going to watch for some upgrades. Do we have any free workers lying around? Yeah, 3. Build some ranges now as well if we want, or we could chop more wood. Going for Polis. Alright. Alright. Moving up the onager. Can the Hittites see that just yet? I wonder. I don't think so. Let's find out. Oh, wow, yeah, just out of vision of that scout. Alright. See if we think about upgrading. We can upgrade. Can upgrade a few archers if we want. We opted for promotion. Strike. I'd like to see these 3 sentinel slingers become archers. Or he could be waiting, which would also be alright. He could be thinking that he wants his opponent to creep a little bit further. I mean, he is spending a lot of training, which I'm kind of not fond of. But he could be thinking, oh, my opponent will come a little bit further, and then I'll upgrade the archers. To kind of surprise him. Get him to waste his turns coming this way. And his orders coming this way. Only to have to tuck tail and run. Also, if the 5 people in chat, if any one of you could chime in and let me know that I sound okay, appreciate it. Very helpful for me to get an audio check from anybody who pops in for the first part of any one of my streams. And of course, if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for supporting the tournament. Make sure to go to the Mohawk YouTube channel and check out their playlist for the full list of games in the tournament, or the ones that have taken place already. And then hop onto the Discord, join the conversation. Would love to have you. Alright, we're seeing some upgrades in the back line here. More spears. He's almost going to walk directly into this onager. He will see it next turn if the onager moves up any further. This is a very interesting map. There's this kind of vast, open no man's land, these two plains connected to each other that separates our players, and then each player has exactly 5 city sites on their side of the map. So very cool, intriguing, kind of like 1 versus 1 map. This is going to be one of the smaller distributions you will see in the tournament, because we have a general rule where if a map generates less than 10 city sites, we just have the players re-roll it if they're willing. If both players agree to play on a map with less than 2 city sites, then they are allowed to do so. But as observers, we will suggest a re-roll if the map has 10 or less than 10 sites, or if the players cannot reach each other by land, which can sometimes happen. And that includes mountains, by the way. That includes mountainous cutoff. So if this was one solid mountain range, we would suggest a reroll. But of course, it is not. It's a nice, lovely, wide open, no man's land. One thing that could be interesting to see from this Hittite worker once we finish this road to nowhere would be a fort. I think it would be cool to see. All right, so we have moved up our onager to a CAD. Very important piece of information for the Hittites that they've just acquired, that siege are now in the field, as well as archers. So this is quite a power spike for the Babylonians that the Hittites are staring down now. I'll be curious if they decide to turn around at this point, or if they still try to take their chances of just headed toward the Larsa, I suppose. Another onager coming out from Babylon next turn, so that will be 2 onagers, and we finally have our stronghold up, so we'll be able to build our unique unit if we wish. Building a road from Dur Athara up to Larsa, probably going to connect to Akkad and towards the front line. That will be useful for any more siege that we build, of course, as well as any other units. But siege get sped up quite nicely. Siege are slower than all units anyway, so they benefit. So in a kind of a backwards way, they benefit from roads even more than the average military unit, because they get a little bit of a extra boost there to catch up, which is quite nice. So siege on roads is always lovely. Two turns to that order boost. We are continuing the road network. In fact, that border boost will pop off right when we finish the road network, which I find interesting. But this is the full field of vision of the Hittites. We can see the full extent of the Babylonian army. We see the onager and the upgrades. So this is going to be a very interesting moment for the Hittites and what they decide to do. I believe this worker is automated, so it automatically built this road. We'll have to cancel that if he intends to turn around, but I will be curious to see what decision Ant makes here. If he decides to press on to potential oblivion, or if he decides to hang back and try his hand at the economic game. considering the build-up here, I think he's going to press on to Oblivion. Which, again, makes sense. It's really his only gambit in this situation. Of course, he doesn't know that. He may. But an erudite Babylon, 48 turns in, showing off onagers and compo and archers, tells us two things. We look at our tech tree. This is the Hittite tech tree. It tells us that the Babylonians have these two technologies, at least. It also tells us the Babylonians in relation to us have this, and this technology. So there's 5 technologies, at least, that our opponent has, and they're all pretty high-value technologies. They have barracks, ranges, archers. They have sovereignty for tyranny if they want. They do have 4 laws. And, of course, now they're showing onagers. Onagers, seeing only one onager could technically mean portcullis. That could be another way to interpret that if you want to try to read your opponent's game state through what you see on the map and in their empire. But once we see the second onager, we can reliably realize that they have catapults. And that's what the other value of reading tooltips comes from, because when we look at Babylon and we see their 4 laws, well, Constitution signals to us that they do very likely, in fact, have machinery, because we know they have sovereignty. Polytheism tells us they have monasticism. And, of course, these laws tell us that they have the respective technologies as well. So you can gain a lot of information kind of just through observation on the map. And that becomes a skill you develop in multiplayer over time. You know, learning how to read the map. And a very, very simple example is, you know, if you see somebody has a camp, or obviously, certainly multiple camps on different camp resources, or obviously, if you see a slinger, you can assume that they have trapping, right? Then, of course, it gets more in-depth from there. You can intuit all the different technological advances of your opponent based on what you see. So if you see a range being built by a worker, or a pasture being built by a worker, you can assume that they have husbandry or composite bow, depending on what you're seeing. And developing that game sense can help assist the multiplayer experience a great deal, because that then helps you adapt and inform your own decision-making and your own way to approach different problems and strategies as it relates to whatever your opponent is doing. The more you're able to intuit the game state purely through observation, I think the better you'll do. Some players are exceptional at that. And some players just vibe, and that's also fine as well. One more turn on the border boost, so I'd be curious if we're going to go on a full-scale attack here, which with the onagers now is just really a bad idea, but I think we'll just end with a bang, perhaps. But if we're going to do that full-scale attack, with order boost coming online next turn, the way to do this, would be to move everything from the back line up as far as you can first on this turn. Perhaps continue to advance a little with whatever else is left in terms of orders, and that way on next turn. I don't understand, though, with positioning. He really wants to come down this way, so I think he's going to try and... I think he's thinking... Oh yeah, with his Hattie Hill movement. Okay, that makes sense. So he has hills up here for better movement. Nice. Tactician in the woods. That's fine. So that's his thinking over here. He has all of this hill movement. And then, of course, he has scrub and woods to protect himself from archers. Let's do a comparison. An archer will do 5 damage to these spears out in the open. It only does 4 on the scrub. And it does 3 to this warrior in the woods. So... some decent defensive terrain for the Hittites that they're attempting to take advantage of. And then next turn, especially if Babylon decides to get cheeky here and just go right in, Babylon could be in for a surprise with how much movement will be available to the Hittites next turn. I would do one movement with this tactician warrior forward, and I would grab probably this guy and move him forward. It's always okay to move in little groups. So just one movement from this guy, one movement from this guy, gets you a little bit closer, or maybe put this fella onto a road. Excuse me. That way, again, next turn when this border boost fires off and we have 40 orders on our turn, we can do a lot of different movements. The other thing that you might want to do if you're ever going to try and plan something around an order boost, to make sure you have a good amount of training in your stockpile, especially when you're about to do a fight. And the reason for that is you might need to force march a couple of times. The Hittites will... Oh, wow, this sucks. I didn't even notice this in the tech tree. Not only can we build an Acadian archer now, next turn we're going to get 2 Acadian archers, which is just shitty. Funky Town just hit strong recently, which also means the heavy chariots are in the discard pile. And that's the thing you probably want to wait for, because we really don't see much in the way of spears. It's a bummer. I talked about this in the first half of the game. Ant really missed an opportunity to put pearls in this city for 7 culture, as did Babylon. They both did. There's now jade here, but really the pearls should have been in both of these cities early on, and it was the Hittites who got access to their pearls very, very quickly, because that was their first build after a settler. A little bit of an unconventional opening. They improved pearls first before any growth resources, and then then put a specialist in it, the fisher in it, before building anything else. So that might not have been the most efficient strategy. However, when it was happening at the time, I was in the assumption he was doing that because he was going to put the pearls in the trader's seat for 7 culture and 3 happiness per turn. But that did not end up happening. I could have gotten behind that strange kind of deviated open, if you will, if we were really thinking culture rush, culture rush, culture rush. Because if we did that, we would absolutely have our heavy chariots in this moment, like right now. We would have already had them. I'm confident that they'd be in the map, in the game right now. We probably would have unlocked them about 15 turns ago, and we probably would have had them researched by now. Which, for this kind of fighting from behind situation that we find ourselves in, that could have been clutch. A really solid route chain before our opponent gets their own unique units lined up, or bonus cards, or any 6 strength unit. The only 6 strength units at this point are onagers. That's enough to have one solid good fight, and sometimes one solid good fight is all you need to end a game. A bit unfortunate that we missed. Where did we put the pearls on the landowner's seat? Yeah, so that was a misplay. So Ant, I'm sure I mentioned this in the previous session, but if you happen to be watching this one as well, I think that's a big takeaway for you here is if normally we go for high growth in our capitals, but if you're going to do something like a funky net push, which who knows, maybe it could, like I said, this game is far from solved, and I love anyone who would want to try an unconventional, starting build, or an unconventional tech path or anything like that. I've always want to encourage people to try and think outside the box and step outside the norms. But I think the mistake here was not actually utilizing the pearls in the correct way. So I'd be curious why we went for the pearls so quickly, and then also why we put them in the landowner's family. What was the thinking behind that? Doesn't really look like... We still have 22 orders left. We don't see much in the way of movement yet. Oh, what's with the fortify? Okay. We're going to be walking ourselves into another onager. I would have unlimbered this last turn if I were Babylon, just in the event that the Hittites decide to wander into our borders right away. Can everybody hear me okay? Six people in chat. Just one of you give me a thumbs up if you don't mind. Check, check, test. Okay, yeah. My audio looks green, so that normally means I'm making noise. All right, more advancing units towards the front line. Our players still are not actually at war yet. Looks like the Babylonians have gotten an intelligent scholar on the throne. That's going to spike their science even more. Let's take a look. Yep, now at 96 science on turn 50, and that is great progression from Fiddler. My baseline is 50 science on turn 50, but yep, it's totally possible to get 100 or more science by now, and Fiddler did it. So that's a really, really good position to be in. And he's in a defensible position. He has decent orders, I believe. Not amazing. Not amazing. He 16 total, it looks like. 16 orders on turn 50. Not the best. In fact, I believe that's the advantage the Hittites have, right? Yeah, 22 orders to 16. And you're going to win a war with orders. Normally, that's truer, I think, for the defending player because it's way easier to defend than to attack. But he's going to have to force his opponent to start moving a lot to try and engage with him if he really goes for Larsa here. I'll be really curious to see how this plays out, to be honest. Oh, 2 Acadians right nearby, though. The 1 onager and 2 Acadians are going to do a real decent amount of damage to these guys. We're already looking at 8 or 9 damage to a warrior. Even 5 damage to this tactician in the woods. So, that will be devastating. We have a diplomat, a slot. Wow. The Hittite dynasty has been awful in this game. Oh, we can get no longer superstitious. See? Listen, to the haters of Behind the Throne, this is what I've been talking about with stressed and superstitious. We've been superstitious for a while, and this is terrible. But every weakness in the game with Behind the Throne has a weakness... Sorry, has an event where you can basically trade the weakness. You'll lose the weakness, but you get stressed in return. And I will take that trade all day, every day, because superstitious is normally permanent. Stressed is temporary. You can clear it, even if you end up with something stupid like drunk or wanton. So... yeah, I will happily... that's one of the things... I think that dynamics like that are often overlooked from Behind the Throne because everybody thinks about the frustrating aspects of things like Stressed or Grand Viziers or whatever. But that's exclusively event-wise a part of Behind the Throne where you actually can reliably dump weaknesses because pretty much every weakness in the game has an event that will allow you to clear it and trade it for Stressed instead. So it becomes super handy, and it actually allows you to bear the burden of those weaknesses a little bit less. Like you can have an event that forces superstitious on you, and without Behind the Throne, you might think, "Oh, great, my game's ruined." But with Behind the Throne, you can think, "Oh, you know what? Maybe this is okay. This is okay. I might get that event that lets me clear it." In the case of the Hittites here, they did. Would like to see them indulge in revelry. Oh, they're already influencing somebody. Okay, so after that, we can indulge and take care of that issue. Really, really good to get rid of superstitions. We still have negative science from this ruler, though, which is just wild. When this person came on the throne, they had something like -4 wisdom, and they were superstitious. And that's a ruler that I would have immediately abdicated. I would take the legitimacy hit, I would take the opinion hit, the order hit, I would just... There was a point on something like turn 40 where poor Hittites had something like 15 or 17 science per turn. So, can't really survive on that into the mid-game. And I've had games like that where I've gotten like a crazy, insane zealot. So I have a baseline negative of something like 5 or even 6 wisdom, tanking my science. And I've straight up abdicated, which is a big hiccup and speed bump to deal with, in the first half of the game. But then you can still, recover from that. Sometimes those are the tough decisions you need to make in order to recover from situations like that, rather than just allowing a crappy situation to remain crappy. Sometimes you have this little aspect where you kind of have to allow things to get a little worse before they get better. It feels like having to immediately abdicate to a different character is a bad thing. And for the most part it is, but sometimes it's the correct play, because it's actually the lesser of two evils that you're faced with. All right, the Hittites are fully staged. We have a 5th law now available to us for the Babylonians. You get slavery or freedom. Politics in Babylon is pretty okay, so I don't think we really need freedom. Be curious to see the choice here. We can also take an opportunity to move some laws around. Take up vassalage if we want. We have very high science, and our opponent is primitive. So you can take the science hit here and make the trade if you want. Epics could be interesting just before this battle begins. Absorb a bunch of this culture into our empire from killing all of these Hittites. Tyranny could be useful, but that's also more science would lose. But, I mean, we could afford it. Yeah, lots of interesting decisions to make. It looks like we didn't adopt a law and we may be assigned a governor or something. Navigation in 2 turns. We could also be saving our civics to get more orders, which would, of course, make sense. We don't really need slavery or freedom just this second. Nice, doing a 4-turn officer in Akkad. Like that as a build for the Babylonians. We're pretty well defended with Onagers and Akkadians. We don't really need any more units right now. We can go ahead and spend this build time on officers to make our life easier if this game goes longer. Take a look at the build queues coming out of Hattie. Lots of spears. A couple of specialists up north. We got hit with an earthquake, which is annoying. And of course, we built an extra settler thinking we'd need it, but didn't scout enough to realize that there aren't enough cities on the map. So this settler should be upgraded to a worker. Or I guess maybe a militia, but I would upgrade it to a worker. I'll be curious who will strike first. Who do you guys think is going to strike first? You think the Hittites will actually launch this attack? Or do you think the Babylonians will come out and face them? And maybe snipe a kill if one becomes available? I feel like they could easily start taking kills. In this situation, they could advance, put an onager behind this river, extending the onager line a little bit further. Now, they don't have the best orders, though, so I don't think the Babylonians are going to attack first. Lots of games today. Lots of games at the start of the tournament, which is very exciting. I think we had something like 7 or 8 games yesterday. Wow, this is an elaborate maneuver. He can be seen, though. So he basically just offered himself up to Marduk. The gods of Babylon shall claim this corpse, I'm sure. Let's take a peek. That's 8. That's 10. Oh, that's 10. Yeah, they can take... I don't know if you want to force march for this, but you can just come up and take a kill very easily here. And you're not too exposed. I mean, I guess you'd be exposed to the tactician. That could be a bait. You can get behind that as a bait. Right? And also, he's, I suppose, trying to start the battle as far away from Babylon's main force as he can, because that actually forces Babylon to spend more orders. So it'll be curious to see what Babylon chooses to do here, because Babylon also, again, can just kind of sit here and wait. There's no rush to come out and steal kills. They could keep doing what they're doing and say, okay, fine, you want to attack me with a bunch of warriors and spears? Let's do this, because Babylon will win the war. So they can just keep developing and play safe, not choose to fight into a tactician, and let everybody come to him. Always remember, excuse me, that for the most part, defending is easier than attacking. You spend less orders to defend yourself. You don't have to travel so much. You don't have to reinforce yourself. You tend to do a little bit more damage in your own territory. You can use your own road networks and your own rivers and your own coasts. And yeah, so if you're faced with a creeping invasion like this and you're itching to fight, I would say not always, but probably for the most part, you're best to let them come to you. Some exceptions I can think of is if someone were onager creeping against you. So what that means, putting onagers in these hills and, like, you know, moving one onager up and unlimbering, moving another onager up and unlimbering, and the next turn doing the same thing, trying to get closer and closer with their siege. That's a situation where you kind of don't really want to let that happen. In that situation, how to deal with it, the best way to deal with it, though, especially if the onagers are exposed without many spears, is to just suicide chariots into the onagers. Do anything you can to thin their siege line before an actual siege takes place. Because that will pay off long term. I would trade a chariot for an onager any day of the week. So if it takes you a chariot, or maybe like a warrior or something, or a couple of chariots to kill an onager or two, and, you know, spears or whatever, kill all the chariots next turn, as long as you have a sufficient production to kind of match the flow of siege coming in your direction, I would trade 2 chariots for an onager most of the time, I think. Rout is incredibly powerful, but I really just, if I'm on the defense, I'm on my back foot, I really don't want my opponent setting up an onager line on my borders, because then it creates this very difficult space to defend yourself, really, because you have to fight within onager fire outside of your own territory, or within your own territory. So that is something you can consider, too, if somebody's slowly creeping against you. There are opportunities where it does make sense to kind of head out and meet them in the field. Terrain is another good example. If we're all flat, open terrain, we have archers. If we had chariots, things like that, that might be a better opportunity to engage rather than let them advance onto a bunch of hills or urban tiles. Sometimes it can be really frustrating to play defense and then realize that, you know, your opponent steps onto your urban tiles and all of a sudden their defense shoots up. That can be annoying, especially if they have something like Warden. It can become pretty beefy. So sometimes you can take the fight to your opponent, but overwhelmingly I think it's easier and more efficient to just play defense. Which was one of the things that makes the Tamilacom such an interesting faction, because they have the ability to increase the strength of all of their units inside their borders. And they can mount some very surprising defenses. They can mount some very, very surprising defenses. Forestry now for the Babylonians. Makes sense. What was our options in that hand? Steel? Steel would have been a good grab, because that would kind of put the final pin in the coffin, I suppose, of ensuring that the Hittites really can't do anything, threaten us, if our 3 or 4 warriors that we have all became axes. Because then you're looking at an army of onagers, 2 Acadians, 3 or 4 archers, and then 3 or 4 axes. I mean, against primarily spear composition. I don't know why we're fortifying here. I don't know what's up with this. Take a peek back. I didn't realize. I was so fixated on this front line that I didn't realize that these spears and stuff are fortifying back here. And even this guy, I'm not sure why. This is costing us an order every turn. So it's kind of a question of, are we advancing or are we defending? And if we are, for some reason, defending out here, would be worthwhile to build a fort, I think. Oh, wow. He's really building a whole road network. I have to admit, I do kind of think this is fun. I don't know why I would go the long way like this rather than just knock down the coast, because I think this would have been, if we just roaded down the coast, that would have been harder for our opponent to spot, right? They wouldn't see us right here. They do have a scout back here, so they'd see some stuff going on, but I actually think it would have been possible for the Hittites to get fully staged here. Let's take a look at Babylon again. Yeah, they could have gotten fully staged in this whole general region. They are actually successfully staying in the shade, so maybe they are keeping track of that. That's really funny. That's really, really funny to me. Building another road. If this were actually a fight the Hittites would win, I would love this a bunch. But I really don't think it's a fight that the Hittites can win. But otherwise, in terms of, the creep and the kind of idea behind this of giving yourself your own transport network towards a weakly defended front, like we know most of the Babylonian army is up here through our scouting. So I can get behind this strategically, as a strategic concept. But one thing I probably would have changed was I would have had the road coming at a more even angle. We could just come straight down the coast from Kusara. That would have been my first change. And the second change we can't really control in this particular game because we're so far behind. But the second change would be actually bring an army that can defeat Babylon. And we don't really have a choice. Of course, we could be choosing not to attack at all. But really, oh, actually, we have 42 science now. That's great. Our science rate has doubled. Look at this. Look at this. Wait. What? Oh, it hasn't jumped up yet. So we've gained. Yeah, on this turn 54. We've gained 10 science. And then in the last few turns, we've gained another 10 science. So this is really great news for Babylon. Love to see that. How did that happen, do I wonder? Adopted centralization on turn 54. So that's where a good chunk of that came. Centralization is giving us 5 science, so that's 1 jump. I'm sure we're getting it from something else. Maybe a governor, a good governor in the capital? Nope. Oh, we have 3 signs. An extra 3 signs we could get if we toss this guy in. The growth penalty kind of sucks, but I would probably take the hit for that at this stage in the game. All right, here we are back to Babylon, seeing the creeping of a road towards him. Seeing the tactician in the woods, seeing nothing else at this stage. Knowing at some point through this scout that units came in this direction. No scouting on the... Which is funny. Oh, we don't have the schemer anymore. Oh my god. Merc camel archers. And didn't we talk about this earlier in the game, that there are no camels on the map? There are no camels on the map, right? Am I right about that? Or am I wrong about that? I don't think there's any camels on this map. So we're talking about how you can't hard counter the Hittites and their unique unit because there's also no riders for you. Yeah, there were no camels that were spawned on this map. And of all things, we get a mercenary camel? Wait, what? Did we not take it? Where is it? It's gotta be. We have to have taken that camel. Are you kidding me? They didn't take the camel. Guys. I think I'm done. You passed? It was like 800 gold or something. I think I'm done. Why wouldn't you take the camel? I'm at a loss here. Deeply disappointed. Because I love camels. They sound amazing. They look even better. And they're also super fast and they mess up horses. Speaking of horses, where is our free chariot on the Hittite side? It's in the draw pile. So we can get it after this cycle. We're going for citizen. No, we're going for sovereignty at the moment. Right, all right. All right, a little bit of better scouting on a part of the Babylonians. They did get a peek of all these fortified spears. And here comes the road. This is really amusing me, like a whole bunch. How are we doing here? Yeah, that's some pretty good movement. You can get right to the front line. This is so funny. He's peeking around this volcano because it's like, oh, yeah, come attack me. No big deal, right? While also roading behind that warrior with a tactician that the Babylonians can see. I feel like the Babylonians are sitting here watching this happen, being like, no, I'm okay. I'll feel free to come on over, but I think we'll sit right here. Thank you very much. Just, I'm curious how far this road will actually get before an encounter actually happens. I'm deeply curious. Still has his full health. This settler really. There's another tip I would suggest, and if you end up in a situation with a spare settler that you can't use, just upgrade it to a worker, because this is, you're trying to find things to do with your orders at the moment. And chopping is one thing you could be doing as well. You could be chopping a lot of these woods for some extra income. You actually need some wood income. So that's an efficient way to translate your orders into income. Then the other thing you could do is upgrade this settler into a worker and start. Oh, we slept the settler. We said, no, thank you. Please stop bothering us. That's a bit unfortunate. We are building the Jerwan Aqueduct. That'll be nice for science. I think this would have been a better location because we'd get 5 tiles worth of farms instead of the 4. But not a big deal. 4 is still very good. Did I just say very good with an accent? That was weird. What the hell? Very good. Yes. That was weird. I don't know why that happened. Sometimes I just talk funny. I think it's part of the fact that I'm very mostly deaf. And I think I just sometimes say and pronounce words and sentences funny because I don't hear very well. So I'm giving my best approximation of a quote-unquote normal human speaking voice. Hamlet. That's nice. Doing some more border pop, trying to connect these tiles. Are we going to get colonies to finish that, or we know we went straight for serfdom? That does make sense. We do want the orders. I think orders have been one of the things we've been lacking in Babylon. We also have a hurricane. The doom has come to Babylon. An omen of doom. Alright, welcome back, Ariba. And isn't this a good one? We can get some 18 science. An extra wisdom, that's pretty solid. Very nice, very nice. 3 turns for yet another Akkadian archer to complement our 2 bonus archers. Our officers are finishing up. I think I'd go for the other apprentice and then start producing more units. We're safe. If we look at our opponent, they're primitive and similar to us. And we have onagers and 6 strength units. Skipper asks, what is a nation that I would like to see added to the game? That's a great question. I would love to see a couple of Arabian nations. I think it would be cool if they did a north-south split. So if they did something like Nabateans in the north, Nabateans would be really cool. And you could incorporate... The thing about that is, like, you could use the family system to incorporate a bunch of different kingdoms, because that's kind of what they do with the game already. Like the Persian Empire in this game, the families of the Persian Empire. You have the original Persian Empire, and then you also have the Sasanians, or Sassanids. You have the Arsacids. That's a family. So basically, the Persians in this game are actually represented by 3 or 4 different, quote-unquote Persian empires. One of them is actually Parthians. So sometimes I see people suggest that they'd like Parthia in the game, and technically Parthia is already in the game in the form of Persia. So, with the Arabians, or Nabateans, I think you could have Nabateans, I think you could have Kedarites, Leonites, basically everybody kind of north of the Hejaz, if you will. I think you could probably include... What am I thinking about the ancient tribe that predated the one that Muhammad came from? I can't remember the name right now. It begins with like a K. Or Q, I think. But anyway, and then for the south, you could do Himyar and include things like Saba and Cataban and all the kind of kingdoms, the trade kingdoms from the south. I think you have a lot of interesting mechanics that you could do. Obviously, Camel Unique Unit is an obvious one, but I wouldn't quite go there. I like the idea of kind of doing something different, because there's a story about the Romans trying to sack Petra, and you're like showing up and having nobody be there, and then so when they left after sacking the city, or raiding it or whatever, they wandered off into the desert to go back to wherever the heck they came from, and a bunch of Nabateans came out of nowhere and murdered all of them. So I like the idea of, I'm really fond of the idea of the possibility of having a melee style unit that can stealth in some capacity. So maybe like they can stealth in arid or desert tiles, or maybe they're the click active ability that allows them to go invisible for like 2 turns or whatever. So I think that would be really neat. Extend the little tactician invisibility to a particular unique melee unit. I think that would be cool. So those are 2 big ones on my list. And anything further east, um, so China, anything China related, Southeast Asia, Funan would be cool. I think Tamilakam really opened the door for like that branch. Even though we don't know much about Funan, so you did probably a lot of be like historic liberty taken with that, or at least I certainly don't know much about Funan. So maybe the collective we, in terms of historians, does. But yeah, just make basically more diversity. I really like that. The initial roster they chose for this game, I think, made sense. Totally. But the first nation they added were the Hittites, which happened to be one of my favorite ancient empires. I have a soft spot for lesser known empires, but the Hittites were a very cool empire that did really cool things. One of the first peace treaties we have on record was signed between the Hittites and the Egyptians after something like a 10 or 15 year stalemated war where they kicked the crap out of each other. So they were a real power back in the day, but they're just not often known about or talked about. So I have a soft spot for empires like that. So I'm a big fan. Nations that I wanted to see get into this game were the Hittites, the Axumites, and the Mauryans. And thankfully now, at this point, all three of them are in. So if I were to have my way, I would see one or two Arabian nations, and then I would keep going east and bring in China, and maybe try to come up with a way to incorporate a Southeast Asian civ. And then, yeah, I think if we could do a tribal, tribal civ and maybe turn the Gauls into an actual nation, I think it would be cool to do something where, like, you could do a custom empire, and yet how they do the custom empire is basically it allows you to take any of the tribes, because the Scythians had an empire, right? The Numidians were pretty decently established kingdom before Carthage did Carthage stuff. So I think it would be cool to be able to customize your own empire, have like a custom nation, but yet how they choose to do that is basically you can select any of the tribes in the game and opt to play them as the nation and kind of do a little customization levers in there about like what their families would be or what your unique national ability would be. So I think that would be fun, because I know there's tons of people who would like to actually play as the Gauls. And there was one person on Steam a while back who was really upset that the Scythians were a tribe and not an empire. So I think there could be a case to turn many of the tribal nations in the game into playable nations. That could probably be neat. So yeah, that's my thoughts on new stuff. Big fan of the recent Indus DLC. It's my favorite DLC. I love the three new nations. I love the diversity of the three new nations. I love that they didn't just do a generic "this is India" civilization. They actually chose not even two. It would have made sense if they just did Maurya and Tamilakam, but the fact that they even went further north and they did a steppe empire with the Kushans or Ueze is even cooler. So I just huge props to Mohawk for doing that. And I wasn't even familiar with the Kushan Empire, so which is shocking now that I actually say that and delve deeper into the history of them, because they were kind of a big deal. But yeah, so there'd be added to that list of my type of lesser known empire that were kind of a really big deal. So I immediately developed an affinity for the Uezi. All right, so back to the game here. We're 2 turns away from sovereignty. Our road has made it around the volcano of Thera. Hittites are looking for a bit of a pause. That's fine. And I really like that. I really, really am enjoying the fact, because again, Babylon knows that the Hittites are still similar and primitive. So I really kind of enjoy that the Babylon's just chilling. They're seeing this slow advance, but they're not really bothered by it. I suppose if I were to do anything differently in this situation, I might migrate a warrior or 2 down here, just so I have some additional, maybe melee unit padding to get in the way of some of this advancing stuff. But really, though, realistically, Babylon is pretty safe. So I like that they're just developing business as usual. They have one Acadian coming out, so that's going to help. But they're just doing apprentice officers. We have a disciple coming out. We have a scout coming. The scout's really good because you want to take a peek over here, another peek over here, to get eyes on what's happening. Skipper, you said you were interested in co-casting at one point, right? Because if so, feel free to reach out to me in a DM on Discord one of the times that I'm casting another game in the future. It can be a little difficult for me to co-cast because of my hearing problem, but I try to leave the door open for people who want to co-cast with me. Because it's fun, and I also know the viewers like it. I'll be honest, I actually like and prefer casting alone, and it's not because I don't want to cast with other people, it's just because I have to turn on a transcript software on my computer. So I become a little bit distracted because I have to read what my co-caster is saying. Sumeria would be cool, but I don't see it happening simply because I think Babylon kind of covers Babylon. Isn't one of their families? They have Amorites, Ivan Kassites. No, those are a little later. I thought they had one of their families was kind of distinctly Sumerian. Kassite, Judea, maybe? No. What? What am I looking at? Kassite, Chaldean. Is it Assyria? I know we referenced Akkad. Maybe. Mostly for me, it's also region based. Like there's so many nations already that are right around the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamian region, that feels a little as cool as all the possibility spaces there still are. Feels a little overrepresented to me. But Zimbabwe could be cool. I was actually, after the Hittites, I was really pleased. I was surprised, frankly, that they did Kush. Because it's very easy to just think, well, we already have Egypt. So I was very surprised when they announced Kush, and I thought it was cool. And then, of course, I was thrilled when they brought in the Axumites, because I have a whole book on the Axumites, and I'm pretty fond of them. Two turns to Phalanx for the Babylonians, instead of something like Hydraulics. Interesting. I think Hydraulics would really ramp up our power level here. 100 science on turn 57, that's fantastic. I talk about the idea of matching the science you're on to the turn that you're on. That's a standard, that's a bare minimum. But really, if you want to be doing really good, you want to get yourself closer to 100 science by turn 50 or 60. Then you're cooking. You're cooking at that point. And we have players that can get 100 science in 50 turns, or even 150 science in 50 turns. Some players really know how to skyrocket their science. And of course, it's easier with different nations. Babylon, with sages, has an easy time generating lots of science. In fact, let's take a look at Babylon itself. Where is most of the science coming from? We have a huge governor. Oh, yeah. Look at this. 16 science from our queen as a governor. 14 science from her just for existing. So that's 30 science just from our ruler. And then Larsa's another one. We're getting 7 science from the oligarch. Phew. Amazing. Who's my sister, and therefore an heir of some kind, I believe. It looks like Yep, she's generating 7.7 herself. So 7.7 there. Or is it just as a governor? Do I have that wrong? Oh, yeah, just as a governor. My bad. Yeah, so I counted that twice. So, yeah, she's another 7 science. So there's something like 40 science for us coming from characters. That's crazy. Yeah, everybody draws a boundary somewhere on what nations to include. Some people don't want to see any more of Asia. Some people don't want to see China in this game. I would love to see China in this game, any form of China. However they chose to do it. They could do multiple Chinese factions. They could do one faction, one massive faction where, like, the Marians can choose 6 families. Imagine a Chinese faction that could choose all 10 families if they wanted to. Something like that. So I think there's a lot of creative potential for China in this game. But some people don't think China should be in this game. And even more people don't think Native Americans should be in this game. I personally also would probably draw the line at Native Americans, because to me, I'm conceptualizing the old world as, Afro-Eurasia. So Africa, Europe, the full extent of Asia. Which is part of why I wouldn't mind if China was in this game, because China was part of the old world, even though it did initially have a Mediterranean slant. I'm glad you like the custom nation idea. Feel free to suggest it for Mohawk, and maybe they'll make a DLC. They're very open to taking player suggestions. Especially when they don't come from me, because I pretty much harass them all the time. And sometimes they listen to me, and other times they just want me to leave them alone. In fairness, they actually... They listen to feedback a lot. I don't know if it ever translates to DLCs, but they listen to in-game feedback. And I don't think we'd be the first people to suggest tribal nations as playable nations. But I think if people keep ringing that bell every now and then, that might actually make them get them to make a DLC out of it, which I think would be neat. Mostly because I also like more nations for variety, right? For strategy and stuff. Yeah. What's up, Sean? Thanks for joining the chat. And I hope you, if you were watching after the fact on YouTube, I hope you'll forgive me for the more chill style of this particular session. First of all, I'm exhausted after casting like half a dozen games in the last 2 days. And secondly, this is kind of a chill session. We have this slow creep. I really love this. I love this so much. Again, it's just instantly going to blow up in the Hittite's face once a battle breaks out. But I just love that it's happening. It's so cool and unique. And really wouldn't be a bad idea as long as the Hittites actually had an army that could fight. But this is some brazen frontline roading from this single worker. Literally every turn for the last, 20 turns? 10 turns? 15 turns? This worker has just creeped forward towards the heart of Babylon. And there's no scouts down here. He can see the army up top, but he's walking down here blind. He's thinking, surely there's no military down here, right? Clearly, he's just left this door. Like, what? That's odd. There's a door wide open for me. He's actually going to connect his road, funnily enough, to a road that was built by Babylon. He's only one tile off. He's planting these 2 tiles. He's only one tile away from actually connecting roads with a foreign enemy road. That is amazing. That is so fun. Sovereignty in 1 turn, which is actually good news for the Hittites. Not even a trader worker. Nope. And we have a trader worker, especially if we would upgrade this settler into a worker. The settler has been sitting here ever since it was built. Which is a bit unfortunate. Blunt Magic, also, by the way, I saw you give some advice on one of the YouTube videos. One thing that I think we should do, not you and me specifically, but we as the multiplayer community, or the Discord community, I've noticed, obviously, some new players, they're making some mistakes, but like kind of like basic level mistakes. I think it would be really helpful if, as we watch these round one games and notice kind of like obvious issues of, oh, you should be founding this family or maybe doing that. I think it might be useful if we use the post-game chat when these games are over. Maybe tag one of the players when we, make the comment and just be like, oh, hey, by the way, I noticed that you didn't do this thing or that you did this thing, but it would have been smarter to do this. And I don't know if people would appreciate being called out that directly, but I think it would be I personally think it would be an excellent way to learn, to just kind of be like, hey, I liked what you were thinking there, but here's why it didn't work. Because I'm hoping that any and all of the players who lose their first round match, will take the L with some humility and grace and feel fired up to charge right into round two and, with the lessons that they've learned and do a little bit better. That's my hope. I hope, and I've had a lot of people, even a couple of people who lost their matches, talk about how fun this has been. So that's our main goal. We want people to have fun. We want people playing Old World and excited and chatting and debating and talking about Old World. That's my favorite thing. So my hope is that anyone who loses, even if they don't even do that great in round one, will be fired up to dive right into round two and, hopefully have a better experience. Yeah. I mean, dude, become a caster. Set up a stream and tune in on a game. That's kind of one of the reasons why I do it. I never want to shut up about this game. You know me. I'm on Discord all the time. I love talking about this game. I love theory crafting. I love saying, no, you should definitely do this because these reasons. And that's pretty much the whole reason why I cast, is because I just get to do that for 3 hours while watching other people play Old World. It's quite nice. Sean wants to win to guarantee more games. Yeah, you know what's funny about that? Technically, speaking of going 0-3, technically, if you want to play the most games in the tournament, you actually should lose 2 games in the Swiss. So that can be your reasoning if you do end up losing our match. You can be like, well, I want to play more games. Because that's certainly what I'm going to say if I lose our match. And we say, well, obviously I lost because I just want to play more games. The more I lose, the more Old World I get to play. Oh yeah, you were signed up, weren't you? Sorry to hear that. Well, I'm glad you're tuning in, and I hope everything's okay. Yeah, we had a couple people who signed up and then couldn't make it. Overwhelmingly, though, which is amazing, we had of the 65 or 66 people in total that signed up, 62 people are all playing. I really hope we figure out what the heck's going on with Ninja, though, because obviously I think we're at a point where it's a bit troublesome that no one has heard from him. We have 5 turns on free heavy chariots. That's actually, I mean, again, we're kind of in the weeds here. 50 science, though. We're creeping up on that benchmark for the Hittites. Really exciting. 10 science coming out of Funky Town. Really great news. So, I mean, still half the science as our opponent. Let's take a peek at this. Still a huge deficit. Oh, my goodness. Babylon has 3,700 to Hattie's 14, nearly 1,500. So, I mean, yeah, it's certainly looking bleak. However, like to see that the Hittites actually had their science growing, because it really did sit between like the 15, 22 mark for something like 20 turns. There was basically no science growth in Hattie for a solid 15 or 20 turns. So it's really nice to see this jumping up either way. Good job to you, Ant. We just need to focus on that to rise more consistently throughout the game as you're playing your next match. Thank you for that update, Blood Magic. He says, for those of us who are friends with Ninja, he says he thinks Ninja started a new job. He doesn't know him personally, but he told me that he graduated over the spring and was going to enter the workplace. That's my hope. My hope is it's good news. My hope is he got a girlfriend, I don't know, or a boyfriend, whatever. I don't know anything. I don't know him personally either. But my hope is he, I don't know, got a hobby, found a friend, got a job, but whatever. I hope it's a good reason that he's no longer in the computer world with us. But of course, you know, it can be easy to assume the worst. So certainly we all wish him the best. The historic city of Funkytown. Yes, this happened quite early in the previous session. And I really got a kick out of that. I thought he was going to do it everywhere, but he did not. Really, really funny. It's been fun to call this Funky Town throughout the game. So here's hoping he stays in more games just so we can get more entertainment like that. Always like seeing different players put their own spin and personality on different things. We have built Oh, man. I wonder if the Hittite player knows that he's going to take an opinion hit once this thing dies. Speaking of opinion, politics in Babylon is amazing. We have 2 friendly families. The Kassites have 354 positive opinion, and the Amorites with the lowest amount of opinion are still a nice, crisp, smooth 122 pleased opinion. Going for architecture. Interesting. Okay. I still think I would be thinking about hydraulics now. I'm seeing nothing but melee units. Again, we're not under threat by the Hittites for real, but a ballista would certainly wipe this out in a couple of turns. Let's look at the political situation in Hattie. Politics in Hattie is pretty okay too. 2 cautious families, so that could be better, but the traders are pleased with us. Friendly even, which is quite nice. If we can get our other 2 families to convert to Judaism, that would be quite a jump. That would be a 130 opinion jump, thereabouts, for both families. We could do maybe try investing. Wait, what? I just noticed it now. Our queen is named Chef Boyardee, guys. That is fantastic. And, oh, yeah, because as if she wasn't amazing enough, not only did she get superstitious come back, but she got greedy, she got wanton, she is now cursed, she already was insane, and she's now scarred. This could quite possibly be one of the worst rulers I've ever seen. Certainly in a tournament game, I think. I mean, the stats aren't that bad. 5 courage and 5 charisma is not that bad. It's the fact that prior to those stats, this ruler started on the throne with like something like -4 or -5 wisdom. But yes, Chef Boyardee, welcome. And she's the keystone. Which, let's take a look at wonders. Oh, right, yeah, we have some decent wonders happening. We are building the Jerwan, but we also did build the pyramids and the Oracle at some point. I'm like desperate to see the final conclusion of this road. It's like, my question is, if the Hittites complete this, and there it is, there's the next road. If the Hittites complete this, are they planning to attack? Are they gonna... Is that what's happening here? Because talk about a telegraphed invasion. This has been like a 20-turn creep towards your opponent. And you're just like, don't worry about me. I'm just over here, minding my own business. You know, just keep building offers or keep building farms and quarries. Don't worry about me. We're fine. Everything's fine. And Babylon's sitting there like, yeah, no, I know. I'm fine. Are you fine? Because I'm completely fine. I mean, even if you attack, I'm fine. Wow. What a fun. I could watch anybody play this game. I love it that much. I could just watch anybody play this game. Which I suppose is why I cast so much. It really eats into my actual playtime, though. Because when we're not in tournament season, I'm just playing all this time that I would be casting. Yep, just passing through, don't mind me. Just, I heard the Jhelum River is nice this time of year. Figured we'd take a peek, take a dip. See how that's going. Checking out the sights around Thera. Came across the Gerbil Plain. Do it! The Barb Horde scenario is awesome, and I know you're a big fan of that. Absolutely do it. I know you play that exclusively. Are you like a challenge nut? Do you like crank up the difficulty as hard as you can, or do you just play it because you like the flow and like you just think it's fun? Either's fine. I don't care. I'm just curious. Because we've had people ask for advice on that. We've had people be like, "Oh man, how do you play the Barb scenario?" So if you play it all the time and you beat it and you're good at it, if nothing else, make a video where it's like, this is the Barb Horde scenario. Here's a game, and talk about how you strategize and how you play the game. Because I think we only have one video in the community of the Barb Horde scenario, and it's the time that me, Fluffy, and a couple other people did like a team game on it. So I really love the Carthage scenario. I think it, especially from part 3 onward. So I've also been thinking it would be cool to do a video where we're just running through scenarios. So it would be cool to have a video where players are running through scenarios. So, and the more content, the better. I think the more people, different accounts are making content, the more attention. Hopefully, it's hard to beat the algorithm, I guess. But the more eyes hopefully come this way, and we get more people playing this fantastic game. $115 science now. Orders are still crappy, though, I have to say. We're on turn 60. I mean, I guess 25 orders isn't the worst, but it could be better. 25 orders for the Hittites. That's the interesting thing, and the unfortunate thing about all this posturing is the Hittites have had a consistent order lead over the Babylonians for the entire game, and yet if we look at the economy, their economy is almost identical. The Babylonians even have a lead by about 11 or 9 improvements. 11 improvements, right? And of course the science, that's 9 technologies, things like that. 5 lost to 4. 2 extra workers over the Hittites. So that's a bit unfortunate, because I feel like if the Hittites maybe sat back and played an economic game, maybe that's just not their forte, right? I think this is definitely a newer player. Maybe if not new to the game, certainly like a little bit less experienced, new to the multiplayer scene. So maybe they just don't have a strong economic game mastered at this point. But their order economy has been great, or decent. They've had 16 orders on turn 22, which is 5 orders more than the Babylonians, and they've basically maintained that approximate rate for quite a while. And even though they're much closer now, 25 to 24, the Hittites are still on top. Hittites doing some scouting out in the open. Also, fun fact, these nations are still not yet at war. Neither player has declared war against the other. So, it's just a peaceful game. That's what this road is for. This road is for trade. Which... Oh no, they have to be at peace. I was going to say, which hilarious. Something bug here with the scout. No, bro, you're not at war. Oh, I'm going to chime in. If he says I can't attack, I'm going to laugh. And Fiddler, if you rewatch this, please don't take it personally. I mean, it's kind of funny. Amazing. You need to declare war. That's awesome. That's amazing. That's so incredible. I love that. So hopefully we can figure that out. Normally, though, I think when you try to attack it, he's going to unpause. Oh, yeah, okay. He was having an issue, so he paused. That's fine. Totally fine if you're having an issue. If you're having an issue, feel free to pause the game and ask for help. No big deal. And yeah, now we have Declared War, First Blood, turn 60, an Acadian Archer, and a Sentinel Archer. Taking out a Hittite Scout. Brutal, vicious execution. But seriously, that was awesome. And Fiddler, if you rewatch this, please don't take that personally. Please take that with some good humor and fun. I just thought it was funny. And honestly, I'm pretty sure I've done that sometimes. I've been like, why can't I attack? And then I forget that I've never even declared war in the last 50 turns. Which is one of the reasons why I think I get in the habit of just doing it immediately now. Yeah, that worker better watch his back, because the scout's down. In fact, I think it's funny that we went for the scout, but we just left the worker as is. It's like, no, he's fine. I actually want... Imagine that. Babylon's like, no, finish the road so I can kick your ass and then use the road to invade you. That would probably be... I think that... Honestly, I think that might be what's happening. Babylon's like, okay, I'll take a road network directly to your empire. Thank you. Awesome. 2 turns on the heavy chariots. We might as well wait. But if we're gonna wait, we need to put some people in woods soon. So more Acadians don't realize that they can come do damage to us now that war has been declared. Imagine if that was one of the things that preventing an attack too from either player, not really realizing that, you know, not having the preview being like, oh look, I can do a bunch of damage over here. Because it doesn't really show up in the same highlighted way if you're at truce. That would kind of be amusing as well. But yeah, 2 turns on the heavy chariots. The heavy chariots would still kind of be a big deal here. Nice. Well, clearly the Babylonians can't allow that to happen. Or maybe they do. And then just use it after they kill whatever's standing in there. This is bold. Bold. And I actually, again, I can't stress this enough, especially to Ant. Conceptually, like as a concept, this is a viable strategy. Aggressive roading, aggressive fording works. But the issue that we have is that the Hittite military can't actually, it's not really going to do anything. It's going to get obliterated by the Babylonians pretty easily. But in theory, like as a concept, aggressive roading, preemptive fording before you assault your opponent, normally you do this from a position of strength while your opponent watches helplessly as you kind of get set up, right? So what's I guess is making me chuckle about this is that the Hittites are doing that in the face of a military that's just going to beat them up. And so even things like the forts or the roads, well, then all of that stuff will have been built for the Babylonians to use. Like, if they kill something, I'm pretty sure Arcadians and a couple whatever else could kill whatever steps in this fort in 2 turns. So you take that kill, like even move this onager up here, and you can bombard it, right? Or onto these woods. So that's thing. And then once you kill whatever's in the fort, the Babylon can move a 6-strength unique unit into the fort, and it'll be on this side of the river, while the Hittite forces are on this side of the river. Let's not forget this river positioning right here. So it's basically going to be against a primarily melee army. So that unit is basically going to become invincible after all of this setup to try and launch an attack. So again, in concept, this is totally fine. But I just don't think you have anything that can back it up. And I feel like Babylon knows this. I'm getting the impression that Babylon is just cool as a cucumber in this moment. Has no issue with the Hittite presence. Because, again, he can see that he's primitive. He knows that he's similar. Let's actually take a look at the military here. Well, the Hittites are actually starting to get a little bit stronger. So really, waiting for... This could be such a surprise upset. Frankly. And I would love to see it. Imagine getting the 2 Hittite chariots, cruising them down here with the road. We still have better or even orders to our opponent. And our opponent, look at this. There's a Zoroastrian disciple being built in every single city. So he's sitting pretty right now being like, it's fine. Obviously, I got this, right? And even my analysis and thinking has been thinking about the same way, right? Like, oh man, the Hittites can't do anything. But could you imagine? There's a regular chariot on the way. There's 2 Hittite chariots coming in a turn or two. Could you imagine? And now the strength is just increased slightly. So could you imagine if in their arrogance, the Babylonians do let the Hittites kind of get entrenched here a little bit, thinking, ha ha ha, I'll just kill them in a little bit. And then... Because we've seen neither of these players fight a war, for the record. Both players struggled clearing the camps a little bit. So, that's not necessarily a good sign for late-game combat. But for the record, we as viewers have not seen either player fight a war. And there's still a tactician on the Hittite throne, although they are getting quite old. They're 54 now. So in theory... It's possible that when they actually come to blows, that the Hittite player could be the better tactician. Like, literally, as a player, they could be better at warfare. And so now that this power is evened out, even though we're dealing with things like onagers and splash damage from the Akkadians, so, this is still not looking great. Man, wouldn't it be quite the upset if after all of this, the Hittites actually beat the Babylonian forces and break right into this core, and Babylon just let them? Just sat back and let them do it? My mind would be blown. I would love that. I would love that so much. We're beginning to stage even deeper into this area. You have to be mindful of the fact that your opponent has Akkadians and siege, so you don't want to bunch up too much. So we are bunching up a bunch. You really want to do things like set in these woods. You have ranger promotion right here too. Oh man, please move this warrior into these woods and take ranger promotion. That would be so huge. That would be so huge. We have 600 training on the Hittites. Nice stockpile for the start of a war. Let's take a peek at Babylon and see what we're looking on that side. 1,200 training with 100 income for the Babylonians. Really nice stockpile there as well. So, looking good for wars. Certainly for the Babylonians. We now have spears for the Babylonians being upgraded. That'll be a little bit more helpful. That'll equalize the power a little bit. But yeah, these have... actually, that's the issue. Now we finally have spears being upgraded, so that's going to help deny route. But what I was about to say is that while the Babylonians have splash, and that's an issue for the Hittites are about to have 2 very powerful routing units. So if you get in an entrenched fight and you're running relatively even in power and damage and kills as your opponent, you can get yourself set up to a position where you can just... all it takes is to have one really good round, one really good route, and you can completely obliterate your opponent's side of the field if you play your cards right. So this is really going to come down, I think, surprisingly. But as I said ages ago, this really, in the position Hittites were in like 20 turns ago, this weird, slow creep invasion thing was kind of also weirdly their only option because they had like 15 science when the Babylonians had 70. They've done a really good job kind of coming back up a little bit at 58 science, but back then it looked like there was just no way they're going to catch up. And even with this hole that we've looked at here with science, 115 per turn, they have 2,400 more science than their opponent. 2,400 science more than the Hittites invested into the tech tree. 4,100 versus just about 1,700 for the Hittites. So I think that's in the realm of insurmountable lead. So that's one of the things that made me think that maybe this wacky strategy is just the only option for the Hittites. But I kind of consider it as a Hail Mary. Now when we look at the military score and we factor in routing, there is a distinct possibility based on player skill and which one of these players is the better general in the field that the Hittites could potentially win a fight. We're seeing no further adjustment on the Babylonian side. We're going for an officer. We just had an empty build queue. We're going for an officer. So this is the Babylonians feeling very comfortable with their siege, and understandably so, feeling very comfortable with their archers and their unique units. And again, very understandably so, not willing to start a fight, it looks like. Although they still have 15 orders left, so they could move in for an engagement here. But if they don't, there will be a fort that pops up. Let's look at the full extent of the Babylonian military. What will soon be 3 spears, 3 Akkadian archers, 3 regular archers, and a slinger that could soon be a regular archer, and 2 onagers. So that is a pretty decently formidable force, especially if you're attacking into it, which we are. If we hop on over to the Hittite side, their military is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spears, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 warriors, 1 chariot, 1 archer, and about to be 2 heavy chariots. So a little bit melee, well, a bit melee heavy. That's going to be the biggest handicap, but route can be a game changer. And the other thing he needs to do, though, is migrate. He needs to migrate all of these units toward the front line. Because that's the other interesting thing about this potential battlefield, is that the bulk of the Babylonian army is still north. So if the Hittites can get themselves into a position where they can blitz or alpha Dur Athara, that might create a battlefield that's advantageous to them. There's lots of woods down here to protect them. Oh, and we can even do a 7-turn machinery, which is highlighted. That's not too far away. The path is narrow here, but there may yet actually be one. Okay, so we swapped to building a spear in Larsa. So more military production coming back to Babylon. Getting Polish for some insane, crazy reason. You even have machinery marked. Why? Oh, are we looking to fish for the civic boost? No, we don't have a law to adopt. You want to fish for the free chariot? Maybe? I hope not. Yeah, machinery would be the play there. Yeah, warrior. Warrior, Chef Boy ID. There you go. We're making memes and memories. Take a moment to have a sip of my water here. Wow, really building another fort. I love that. And fortifying right here. That's crazy. Let's take a peek on the Babylonian side and see how much damage we can do to this guy in the fort. Soon. Oh wow, look at that. Look at that. See, that's what you give up. That's 4 damage from a 6 strength Akkadian unit onto a warrior. 5. You can do 7 if you walk right up. That guy's gonna do 5. What's this? Oh, he has Heckler. Okay. So actually, he'd do less damage if you took the general off of this unit. Yeah, man. Now we have another fort happening behind. And if we did... Oh, Babylon needs to go to machinery, because if we did actually get our own onagers and manage to scoot them up to the front line, well, then that becomes the problem. That actually becomes the problem. Fascinating. I'm fascinated by this. You know, and I actually have to say something. And I don't want the players playing this game to take this the wrong way, or any viewers or tournament participant take this the wrong way. But I kind of think watching less experienced players is sometimes more entertaining than watching the really good players play. I think the really good players playing is fun in the sense that you learn a lot, and of course, you know, there's skill expression and lots of cool tricks, and maybe often more intense moments, I suppose. But less experienced players, I think, take more risks or make more interesting plays because, for lack of a better phrase, maybe they don't know any better. But I still think that makes more interesting scenarios like this. What is happening here is fascinating me a whole bunch. And I want to look at the power now. Did we get our chariots last turn? No. Is that next turn? No, we did. Oh, so these will calculate. The chariots will calculate on the next turn. Yeah, it's fun to rename your starting rulers, because then when you have a kid, they'll ask you to name it after that name. Happy 4th. Oh yeah, it's the 4th of July. Very cool. Alright, we're getting some monasteries, so the science gap is going to increase even further. In fact, aren't we coming out with disciples everywhere? Yeah, no worries. I don't really celebrate, so. Not a big deal. This is what I'd rather be doing. People with hearing issues don't necessarily like really, really loud noises. So I've never been a particular fan of this holiday, to be totally honest. Citizenship in 3 turns for the Babylonians. Do we have anything marked? No, we actually have citizen. Is this the 7th law? We're at 5. We have engineering, yeah. Citizenship will present us with the 7th law as an option. I don't think... I missed the civics that we had back there. We have enough to adopt 1 soon. We could choose to adopt legalism if we wanted to. We would get 4 more orders from Divine Rule, which is always a very strong pick. And of course, we don't care about the science loss because our science is amazing. But if we want to get to the 7th law a little bit quicker, we could always choose to adopt legal code instead. That would double our current civic rate, which could be quite nice. Get us the next law in 4 turns instead of approximately 7 or 8. All right, we have our chariots down. Did our power go up? Look at this! Is there a window? Will it happen? Is there a window? I think I just saw one move. Yep. One is moving. Hypatia, the younger, has been put on as a general. Ooh, look at this. This writhing star. 21 damage. Put on a general. 21% attack increase. Put on as a general. Guys, bring up this chariot as well. If the Hittites pull this off, I am going to lose my mind. That will be amazing. Because I apologize to Ant, but we are in a position in this game where there's really no business for the Hittites to win. Just for the last 30 or 40 turns that both of these nations have had. But we could have one of those classic situations where a nation in the lead got a little too cozy, a little too greedy. Again, we're building one spear now. That's great. We'll see what these build queues do up north, but we've greeded for like the last 10 to 15 turns or more. There is one strong city, so he can get his 8 strength unique unit. But just one. And so, yeah, there's a window. And as I've been watching this whole time, I've been thinking, okay, the window for the Hittites and their families are friendly. Politics in Hattie is fine now. Politics in Babylon has dropped a little bit. We're actually back down to cautious from friend everywhere, so the political situation actually favors the Hittites now. Dude. This entire time I've been watching this happen, I've been thinking, oh, the window for the Hittites is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And now I just feel like something came along, those heavy chariots came along, and just kicked a door wide open. Want to keep an eye on these build queues up north for the Babylonians. And then, of course, the capital here. And still a tactician on the throne for the Hittites. No vision on this, by the way. There's a scout nearby, but no real vision on the build-up in this shadow. I think we peaked once or twice over the years and, saw these spears and whatnot. I would love... Honestly, even I am not sure how I would play this out if I were the Hittites, but I would love it so much if they really have a strong sense of what it is they're doing, and they're just biding their time, or like ready to make a move because, in some sense, the window is still shutting, the door is still shutting. But now I feel like they have a path. This is a sizable bit of advantage, especially when you're the only one of these two nations with route. Okay, take care, Sean. Have some fun. Everybody have fun. Appreciate the 11 people that are live with me now. Good to have you all here. Of course, if you've been watching after the fact on YouTube, I'm thrilled that you've been watching it too. Hope you have been enjoying the tournament. Lots and lots of action taking place. We've had a lot of great tension in these games, and I think we're about to see... I love rooting for an underdog. Who doesn't, anyway? Right, so it feels like the Hittites have had a pretty rough game. So if they just come out of this fog swinging and alpha strike the shit out of Babylon and cripple this core while Babylon's army is just sitting in the north, my jaw will drop to the floor. Especially because the Babylonians literally just allowed it to happen. In their hubris and in their strength, they would have allowed it to happen. How far can these guys reach? This army can't even get that far south yet. These guys can reach. But so that puts 3 Akkadians, an archer, and an onager within range of defending Dur Athara, which you can cut off with warriors and stuff. be willing to sacrifice a couple of warriors. Is there a lot? And there's no walls or anything in Durathar. It's just the Akkadian. 20 orders on the Hittites. I think we might have an advantage for Babylon now. No, still. Oh my god. Still an advantage for Babylon. Order advantage. Power advantage. Route advantage. At this stage, the only thing in this particular situation going in favor of the Babylonians is their amount of... is the fact that they have 3 unique units, 2 onagers, so they have splash. They have siege. But they're wildly out of position to defend themselves in their most valuable cities. They opted to keep building specialists, not military units. There's a window here. I'm going to lose my mind if the Hittites win this game in the most positive way. I will have been blown away if Ant pulls this off. The only issue now he has is he needs to get his army moving up here quickly. Oh, the scout, the tactician is now in the woods. Dude, are you kidding me? Well, I don't understand the retreat there. No, advance, advance. Let's do this. Let's do this. Get your other chariot up here. Put it over here. Get something into this fort. Max level. Ooh, I like this. If this archer can get into this hill, that'll be really nice suppressing fire for the region. This max level archer needs to get into this forest right by Thera on the hill. And that'll be really great suppressing fire for this whole region as Babylon tries to come down here to deal with it. Babylon can now see the heavy chariot, so they should know that they're under threat. But the heavy chariot is completely protected from any potential spear advance. This is amazing. Akkadians backing up. Babylon build queue is free. Sipar's build queue is free. Akkadians backing up further. Wild. Spear coming out 1 turn out of Larsa. Lumber mills coming down all over the place. Really decent economy on the Babylonians. Relatively speaking, anyway. Citizenship in 1 turn, that will be our 7th law potential. We just adopted philosophy. Interesting. Okay, that's fine. Not really in the mood for wonder spamming at this point. Philosophy is pretty decent if you're not wonder spamming. And doing some scouting. Taking a peek. Seeing the buildup. Bro. This is amazing. Okay, a second scout coming down. Seeing more of the buildup down here. And we're out of orders. We're probably going to want to see some military buildup from the capital, from Sipar. I'll keep eyes on this region to see what choices we make in the build queue. Cautious families with 2 of our families in Babylon. Pleased. Civics boost for the Hittites. So that's what he was looking for. Maybe he's thinking he's going to... Does he have spoked wheel? He does not. Oh. Well, civics are always useful. Pretty decent economy in Hattie as well. His only issue in this game has been science, I think. They both struggled similarly on tribal camps. So I think that's one thing that's nice too, because some of these matches have felt a little uneven. So I hope everybody gets a better matchup in the second round now that players are winning and losing games. But it's also been nice to have some of these matches that feel a little bit more evenly matched. And I think these players, despite Babylon's distinct advantages. Overall, I think they seem a lot more evenly matched than some of the other matches we've seen. We're now at 65 science for the Hittites. So now we're close to that benchmark. Of course, the benchmark kind of falls apart if you haven't been hitting it all game, because 65 science on turn 65 is good, but not really if you've been, 20 science under your benchmark for like the last 40 turns, because now you're still obviously behind. But still, props for increasing it, getting it back up. Wild game. Wild game. I'd like to see this chariot advance further. I'd like to see this archer advance to the protection of the spears, or maybe into these woods, and then get themselves in the position to be in these woods. Further here. And then if the Hittites can just casually block off Larsa and start sieging Dur Athara, we do have another Akkadian coming out of Babylon. And we do have another spear coming out of Sipar. So the window was beginning to close once more. And we can get hydraulics. And hydraulics will basically be GG, because if the Babylonians actually... There it is. There it is. Just as I say it, so is it picked. If the hydraulics comes online and the Babylonians put out ballistas, that's GG. There's just no way the Hittites will be able to assault into ballistas, onagers, and unique units with spears with their current composition. So the Hittites need to move. Like yesterday. All of these units should have moved up from the back line. This chariot should move up from the back line. And that's what I'd like to see in the next 2 turns. Is everybody just move into this corridor between the 2 volcanoes. Keep this... In fact, if anything, because he's been fortifying a lot, these guys should be fortifying. Right? And then you should be migrating all your units down here. Staging for an attack. Yep, his window is closing. His window's closing because ballistas are going to show up. His windows are closing because 7 laws are now accessible to the Babylonians. So an 8 strength unit is going to be showing up. So as unlikely as the possibility seemed, while all of this slow creeping has been going on, there actually is right now a very tiny window. Turn 66, 850 power to 630. That's not a massive difference. Babylon can absolutely win this fight if they play it right, but it will come down to tactics, and the Hittites do have rout potential. So if the Hittites can make a move, they could capture the core of Babylon. They could just literally bypass this entire northern army and not even worry about them. But they need to start staging. They need to get all of these units from the back line into this volcanic corridor. That's 1 or 2 turns. And then they need to make their assault in another 1 or 2 turns. Within the next 5 turns. Otherwise, that's GG. And it will be a shame, because as unlikely as I felt that the Hittites were going to win during this session, it always breaks my heart a little bit more when I realize, as unlikely as it may seem, there actually is a window. There's a small path with which the Hittite player, with some bold moves and some aggression, could actually end this game and win. And that's just not what I was expecting on turn 66 of this game, the way this game has been going so far. So, fingers crossed, we see some serious forward movement from the Hittites. What on earth just happened there? We got 4 rebels, and that is disheartening. Because I feel like we're going to see units turn around. Which means more turns we're not advancing. Man, that's a shame. Did I just have a graphical glitch? Or did he actually kill that? I feel like if he killed that, he would have routed, right? Or maybe he doesn't route if you get that weird kill event. I didn't see it, though. Alright, well, here we are. That's a shame. That's gonna lose us turns on this potential assault. Ugh, frustrating. I wish I could just be like, dude! Stop it. Don't even spend orders on worker stuff. You're done. You're done playing the game. No more worker turns. No more improvements. Pause. Line up. And strike. Literally, not only... See, this is the other thing. This is the other thing that's important. Not only does Babylon have a stronger army... Sorry, Hittites have a stronger army. If the Hittites actually stage in this region, and the Babylonians can't shift appropriately, this strength, I would say about 400-ish of this strength, 350 to 400 of this 630 strength for Babylon, is all right here. So, the Hittites' 800-ish strength army would be facing like 200 worth of strength, give or take. Which is a battle they could absolutely win. They could take Dur Athara, theoretically, I think. They could lay siege to it and then kill anything that trickles down here to try to stop them. Because there's just not enough units in the region. Oh, boy. Boy, is that frustrating, and does that make me feel horrible for the Hittites. I hate it when I hate it when they're the window and a player misses the window. This feels like Alcaris all over again. Alcaris lost a game to Ninja that there was like a 20-turn window that he could have won, despite the fact that Ninja just played a completely better game for the most part. But like a window opened up and Alcaris just didn't see it. And I feel like that's what's happening here with the Hittites. It's like, against all odds, the Babylonians are playing a better game, or at least having a better game than the Hittites. And yet, against all odds, a window, a 10 to 15 turn window has just sprung open for the Hittites to maybe make a killing stroke, a definitive game-winning move. And I think it's just not going to happen. And again, there's no guarantee, right? There's no guarantee. I'm not saying the Hittites are throwing the game, but I think they're missing an opportunity. And that's probably my least favorite. That's the most heartbreaking thing to watch as a spectator, when you just can have all this information and you realize there's a chance. Especially for the underdog. You know, who doesn't like rooting for an underdog? Alright, I believe in you, Hattie. Also, the Hittites is my favorite faction, so I hate to see them lose. I think I'm going to see that a lot this season, though, because... well, that seems to be a trend in the first round so far. Potentially. Not all the Hittite games are finished. But, not looking so hot for my chariot boys. Hydraulics in 4 turns. Yeah, the Hittites are my favorite nation. By far. And it's really cool because I started playing this game in 2022 during the Steam release of this game, because it was an Epic exclusive for like a year. And when it was released on Steam, they came out with the Heroes of the Aegean DLC. which is what brought the Hittites. And that's the reason why I bought this game. Because I actually misunderstood. I forgot. Like, I actually misplaced this game, and I thought it was a different game when I was reading about it. Like the announcement or the advertisement on Steam. But the fact that it included the Hittites and was just releasing the Hittites on Steam is what made me buy it. It was one of the things that, of course, the fact that it was a Soren Johnson game and all that fun stuff too, what played a role. But I have a soft spot for any ancient strategy game, war game, whatever that will include the Hittites, and that goes as far back as the original Age of Empires. The original Age of Empires holds a soft spot for me because it was a strategy game set in the ancient world that did not include Rome. The very first original release of Age of Empires did not include Rome. And yet they did include the Hittites, and that was my first introduction to the Hittites as a faction. And the tutorial of that game was a Hittite versus Egypt campaign. You could do the Battle of Kadesh and all that. And I've basically been in love with the Hittites ever since. That was my first introduction to them in the real world. Like, I never heard of them before. And I've always kind of disliked Rome as a faction. I hate the obsession with Rome, basically. So Age of Empires gets huge bonus points for me because the very original release did not include Rome. And yet it included fun factions like the Hittites. I think Yamato was in that one as well. You mentioned them, Skipper. So yeah. Nostalgia has me loving the Hittites, and that's why I bought this game. Basically. And here I am, 4 or 5 years later. Okay, moving up. Getting into a fort with our archer. Staging a little bit more. We need to be more aggressive with our orders and our positioning. Move forward. Get going. The clock's ticking. I worry now that with machinery in 6 turns, the Hittites will be waiting for their own onagers, but they don't need to with the heavies. Let's take a look at some of this. 5 damage. Where is an Akkadian that's not standing in a stronghold? Over here. 5 damage. Okay, not the greatest. How much damage you do back? Only 3 in a fort. Probably closer to 5 or 6 out in the open. How much damage did you do to a city? 3? What about you? You do 2. So that's 1, 2. No, sorry, 4. So 4, 7. What a good old tactician friend. 8, 9. We can get this easily. With just 3 units, we can get this to half health. So imagine if we actually had our full force up here. Could take the city in 2 turns. You could take the city in approximately 2 turns while being able to fend off this force that can actually reach you. Because none of this stuff can make it. Even if you were to force march, you'd run out of orders. Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Yes, the Hittites were included in Civilization 3 as well. Civilization 3 had a weird art style. I actually like that version a lot. I feel like it's not one of the more popular versions of Civ, but I enjoyed that version quite a bit and played it a lot. And yes, the Hittites were there as well. I think they were included in an expansion, though. I don't think we're part of the original roster. But they did end up in the game. I don't remember. But I know they were in Civ 3. And then they were excluded from Civ 4, which was heartbreaking, and Civ 6 too, I believe, which was also heartbreaking. And 5, I think. I think that's the last time they were in the game. I don't know if they're in Civ 7 because I don't really know much of anything about 7 because I don't really care anymore. Don't really have much interest in the Civilization family. Franchise anymore. Yes, and Babylon needs to be migrating south. The fact that they haven't, this has been telegraphed, not even like now, this has been telegraphed over the last 30 turns, And I find it fascinating that Babylon's just sitting up here. Fascinating that Babylon's just sitting up there. So yeah, the problem is going to be is if the Hittites are waiting for onagers, that happens in approximately 6 turns. But while that happens, ballista and 8 strength units are going to hit the field for the Babylonians. The Hittites are kind of shooting themselves in the foot here. So on that note, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a global view here. Oh, why are we building... Is this autonomous? No, we're building walls. Yeah, I think... Unfortunately, I think the Hittites don't have it. They're the window, but I don't think they either don't see it, or I don't think they have the tactical sense to just go big and make a bold move here. But anyway, I'm gonna pause the screen here with you guys getting a full field of view. I'm gonna take brief break to myself, come back in a minute, and we'll see where this match ends up. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. There's 11 of you in the chat at the moment. And if you've been watching after the fact on YouTube, glad to have you here. Feel free to skip ahead a minute or two, and maybe I'll be back. Already more staging. The entire time I was gone, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to come back and they're going to be in the middle of a fight. And I would have been so upset if that was happening. I would have been so upset if I stepped away after all this and I missed the action. But we are staging more, which is nice. Running out of time. Still peeking around with our scouts. Alright. Piece of noob advice number 1. Don't build walls. Oh, man. Like, I think it would be more... Walls are niche. They have uses. But I think it would be a better piece of advice to adopt literally never build a wall in your empire as a blanket piece of advice. And you are more likely to not run into an issue with that strategy than you are with running into an issues by building walls in your empire. It's just a waste of time. First of all, you're gearing up for an invasion of some kind, I think. Second of all, the general philosophy is, for the most part, apart from the usual niche circumstances where we say things that aren't good turn out to be awesome, for the most part, the general rule of thumb is if a city of yours needs walls in order to defend itself, then you are already losing the game. You need to beat your opponents in the field. You need to prevent them from taking cities by ever even getting or breaching cities in the first place. And you do that by killing them on their way to your cities. And yeah, we're building a council here too. When the economy is fine. Oh, we're counseling. Oh, you know what? We're probably doing that for the civics. That's fine. I was saying that's one of the reasons why we should have adopted legal code first. But we're 100% running council in these cities for the civics. Because we want to get our 7th law. I do this. I'll do this. I don't hate that as much. We're still pretty well Whoa! We're moving in! Finally! Oh my god! There's not enough units here. Why didn't we... This is going to fail. And it shouldn't fail. It doesn't have to fail. But all of these units should be in this volcanic pass right now. He does not have 7 laws. He has not adopted his 7th law yet. He needs 150 more civics. Alrighty. Just in time for the ballista to show up. Oh no. Babylon does not have 7 laws. Babylon has 6 laws. He has not adopted his 7th law. He needs 40 more civics. So he was running council to get more civics. Legal code and divine rule is available. He does not have them adopted. Sorry if I lingered on that screen. Oh, philosophy was 6. Look. You're actually like a minute behind me, so I apologize. But yeah. This is the law screen. Divine rule and legal code. He got these first. But he adopted philosophy first. Before the other two. What are you talking about? Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I'm wrong. Yeah, he doesn't have slavery and freedom either. So we're both wrong. That's fun. I got the count wrong. I didn't even notice that he doesn't have slavery and freedom. So he has 6 without that. So yeah, we're both wrong. But yeah, he's missing his 7th law is basically the point. And it's because he doesn't have one of these. Hittites actually have 4 laws now. So they could be building a heavy chariot. But they're not. We'll call it a draw. Yeah, it's a tie. Hooray. See, ironically, I think the Hittites can get down here with the rest of their army faster than the Babylonians can. So this could still be okay for them. I might... What's the opinion? I might even murder workers, to be honest. Apologize if you guys can hear me snacking. I need to set up a mute mic hotkey. I still don't have it set up. But I also don't want to be like Kitten and mute myself a million times in a game. Attacking a city. Moving in generally. Oh, we're not. Oh. We're not factoring in that river. Alright, well, at least we're getting some action. Oh my god. Scion ASMR stream. ASMR actually drives me nuts. That would kind of be funny if I did that. Great, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. What? Oh, what? This is what we've been doing? We're attacking into the woods? Do I like this? Can either of the onagers hit? A little bit. Wild. This is wild. We're doing a two-front thing? Okay. Okay. This is where it comes down to player tactics. Who is the better general in this game? Because now we have council everywhere. We have one more Akkadian coming out. We have decent damage on Dur Athara. And the Babylonian army has a Hittite military in the middle of it. Which means they need to make some decisions. Speaking of windows closing and shutting and doors opening and closing, I mean, I feel like somebody's just playing ding-dong ditch with us constantly. Like, just the doors swinging open, swinging shut, swinging open, swinging shut. Here we go! Is there a window? Is there a possibility? We still have one chariot back here. We have a heavy engaged already. We are in the woods. What's the spear situation? 2 spears or 3 for Babylon? Whoa, suddenly we have 4 spears. Oh, because we built one. We had 3 warriors. We upgraded 2, built a 4th spear, and then upgraded the final one. Well, built a 3rd spear, and then upgraded the final one. Alright, so 4 spears is not looking good for Hattie. But this guy's on the wrong tile, by the way. And you get an extra attack bonus from being on a hill. So you should plop him on a hill. Hopefully next turn. How much damage can we do? I don't think we want to advance towards Babylon. Alright, it's Babylon's turn now. 20 orders. 2 directions pulling us. Being pulled in 2 directions. We need to save this city. I think we will. Or maybe we can't. We'll need to force march to secure a kill. We could secure this kill, I believe. We'd need 2 force march. Wow, the Babylonians have 2,000 training. We're up in the north now. Honestly, that training amount could be another reason why he's running council. But he does have the ability to adopt his final law now. I do think this is going to fall apart on the account of the Hittites because he really just needed to stage better. I actually don't fully hate the idea that he might have had of like going in and trying to cut off the retreat. Or not the retreat, but the defense. But I think splitting up the heavies was actually a mistake. And I think, honestly, I would have put the tactician on the archer. All right, we have 1 dead heavy. And also, you don't kind of... I feel like you don't really want to engage unless you're killing something, right? Unless you're achieving something. This is a pretty good hit on Durathara. Maybe we could take it next turn. We need to move properly, though. Whoop! There the spear. Surprise! Surprise! Only 1 order left, though, so this chariot will live to see another day. And I think Ant is about to learn the very valuable lesson of... I mean, don't get me wrong, you cannot actually blitz territory. Oh, all the training. All the training. We just spent a whole bunch of training to secure that kill. So worth it. Both heavy chariots down. Surprisingly, this is what I'm saying, man. Surprisingly, the Hittites are actually still similar. So imagine if all of these units were engaged in this fight. Could have been a different story. Could have been a different story, but not looking so hot for the Hittites. To be totally honest, at this particular point in the game, I wouldn't even adopt my 7th law. I would queue up a ballista, and I would civic rush it. 100%. Well, suddenly we just got 700 civics, so I think we won't need to do that. But if I have to choose between a law and a ballista in this particular moment while we're under attack, I would actually choose the ballista. Because at this stage, we just really need to clean this stuff up. In fact, I guess maybe not. Maybe we don't really need the ballista. Maybe if things were a little bit worse, we would need the ballista. But we'll be fine. So we can adapt the law and start working on the citadel because Babylon's fine. Going for a spear. We are going for ballista up here. How much would this take? We could rush it for 380. Yeah, that would put us under the ability to build LR. We have another one coming. Yeah, this game is over. This game is over, but we will see how long it takes for the Hittite player to realize that. It is the Hittite player's turn now. Let's hop on over and see how things are going in Hittite land. Oh yeah, what a shame. Even fantastic politics. I think the concept could have worked, and we're engaging. Wow, look at that kill. We just insta killed that spear that didn't have too much damage on it. Or did we just use all these units and I missed it? We did. We just used all these units and I missed it. Okay. Well, we're going to lose a bunch of units next turn. And work our way towards GG, I suppose. Bringing some more units from the back line. More spears are out and about. There is a spear in every single city right now. This is a shame. Let's look at the power graph. Yeah, we're dipping, but we're still stronger. Not stronger in terms of actual... we're similar, but I mean, we have more power. So I feel like there could have been a potential here if tactics were different. Very unlikely potential, but I was rooting for the Hittites. 10 orders left. 2 turns to machinery. The Hittites could be thinking, it's fine. I'll just get my own onagers to the front lines, but I think we attacked a little early if we were waiting, but we attacked a little late if we were trying to get this actually done on time. And that's the fun thing about Old World, because even experienced players still struggle with this. Most of the time when you lose the game, it comes down to one of 2 fantastic things, because these things are opposites. It's because you either attacked too late, or you attacked too early. I don't know how it's always one or the other, but even the more experienced players seem to mess that up pretty consistently, myself included. It feels like it very rarely feels like my opponent came along and beat me, and I know that sounds conceited, but what I mean is it also feels like I just beat myself because, like, oh, I had this army, or I had this window, or I had this idea and the strategy, and then I pulled the trigger on it, and they're like, oh nope, you waited too long, or oh nope, you pulled the trigger too soon. You needed it to wait. There's like this Goldilocks zone that is always moving around in the Old World space of like, when is the precise best moment to actually move in and attack somebody? And yeah, it's easily the most difficult skill to learn, in my opinion, about this game, is like when to attack, when not, and the difference, basically. So I think Ant will be getting a little bit of a lesson in that in this fight, in this game. I think this is a case of he probably should have attacked sooner. All right, what did we just get, technology-wise? Spoked wheel. Well, so now we can route, which is fantastic. The Babylonians, that is. 168 science per turn, by the way. Look at that. Nearly 3 times as many science as much science as our opponent. Over double science invested in the tech tree. So, yeah. Definitely an opportunity to learn some tips and strategies from this game, I think, for the Hittite player. I think the Babylonian player played a good game. I think there were lessons there as well. He really seemed to struggle clearing early on. I think if this were a larger map, he may have struggled more if there were more tribes and more camps. Yeah. So, work on some clearing, I suppose. But otherwise, I mean, Babylon seems like they're playing a solid game. For the most part. I did think it was funny that they just allowed... Honestly, I kind of compliment that. Because going back to the idea of Babylon having a pretty fair chance of defending themselves, since defense is easier and they do have these unique units and siege and all this stuff, I kind of can commend Babylon for just kind of keeping it business as usual in Babylon while this slow creeping conga line made its way excuse me, towards him, because to me that signals he does have at least some sense or comfortability with how much threat he actually is or isn't under. I still think there was risk involved, because I think maybe with a little bit more experience and tactical knowledge, the Hittites might have pulled off an upset. But I also do think at the same time, like both of these things can be true, where, you know, there was a chance for the Hittites to pull off an upset, but it also was probably the correct move for Babylon to just kind of ignore the Hittites and say, okay, I'll fight you whenever you're ready to fight. But I'm just going to keep working on my economy while you spend all the orders getting over to me. Yeah. So that's cool. Good for them. Had 3 kills this turn. Wow. 3 kills this turn. 2 kills last turn. That's 5 kills. And looking like it's going to be another kill. And after all that, so that's 6 kills total for the Babylonians in this war. And I believe they've only lost 1 unit themselves, so that's devastating. But again, think of this. The Hittites are still similar. Imagine if they just were able to get their units to the front better. If they were able to stage for this attack better. This actually could have been a different story. By the way, 34 on orders. I have no earthly idea how that happened. Oh, laws, probably. Divine Rule and just Divine Rule was 5. Serfdom, did we swap off colonies at some point? We're not on monotheism yet, but that would be another 5. But yeah, orders for the Babylonians are no longer an issue. We have 34 per turn, probably stopping all of our worker development. We did spend a lot of worker turns in the last, 15, 20 years. So that probably had something to do with it as well. Let's actually look at orders. Because the Hittites were on top for most of this, right? Yeah, they just shot up with Divine Rule. That makes sense. All right. Your move, Hittites. Your move, Hittites. Still similar in power, but your army is nowhere near where you need it to be. And we're building yet another wall. So you really need to break this habit. Because, again, even if we want to make the case for a wall, border city only. Because if your border city failed, well then, you're losing. That means you lost the battle. And your army is very likely dead. It's very tricky to learn how to use walls. It is, of course, an exaggeration to say never build them, but I would rather new players literally never build walls than building walls when they shouldn't be building walls. It's one of those things in Old World that's very niche, situational thing, and most things like that in Old World, that means it's a little difficult to know when to use them, because walls feel like a good thing conceptually, but in terms of opportunity cost, that's the issue. Like the resource you're spending, the build queue you're spending, and then the question of, are they even going to get used or not? And then that's all factored in. And then conceptualize that even further. Is my wall going to get used? If the answer to that question is yes, that's also not a good thing. So that wall should instead be a spear or a chariot or a slinger or anything else to help you put you further in a position where you wouldn't have even needed the wall in the first place. Heavy chariot, for example. We're making 100 civics per turn in Hattie. You know how many heavy chariots we probably could have had in the last 15, 20 turns? By combining, our training output kind of sucks. 8-turn heavy chariot, but you put in 2 or 3 turns to this, and then you click this magical button, and you get yourself a 300 civic cost chariot. And then in a few more turns, you do the exact same again. You can do that almost everywhere. There's a horse here. There's imported horses here. There's horses in Alala. And there's horses in Adana. So you have 3 different nodes with which you could be civic rushing heavy chariots from. So that's a very, very valuable lesson to learn as well. When to rush. I have a whole video on it on my YouTube channel for anybody who hasn't seen it. Give it a watch. Some of the information in it is a little outdated now, but for the most part, it really captures the essence of the absolute crazy nonsense you can do with rushing production. So, a little bit of a self-plug there, but really it's for anyone who wants to learn, you know, a little bit of better play in Old World. Check out that video. It's, I don't remember what I called it, but it's rushing production or hurrying production, one of the two. Ballistas coming out in 3 and 5 turns for the Babylonians. Any other ballistas? Yep, a ballista being the capital, another 5 turns. So we're going to have a handful of ballistas coming online. The Hittites are tucking tail and running. And what do they say? After building a bunch of forts that the Babylonians can use in pursuit, and more importantly, after building an entire road network that the Babylonians can now use for their siege, by the way. For their siege. Ballistas are slow, slow, slow. What do you need to move ballistas where they need to go? Roads. So the Hittites have built a road network for the Babylonian siege system. Look at this. These forts still are good, though. Can't stress this enough. Only doing 5 damage to a warrior. And the Akkadian archers only do 5 damage because it's fortified in a fort. So I don't think forts get utilized enough. Walls suck. But forts are amazing. But the forts are another thing that you need to kind of get a feel for and sort of learn how to use them. But man, are they strong. Look at how much investment. This is 3 Akkadian archers, 1 regular archer, and a 4th Akkadian archer. And what did they just kill? They killed a warrior. So now imagine we're fighting a battle in defense of Kusara, because we're under attack by a stronger force, and all of that effort was used to just kill a warrior, while we still have things like our heavy chariots, or maybe our own siege weapons or whatever. We're going to come back swinging hard against that, right? So forts, I really think people should be building forts more often. Just sprinkle, like, look at all these quarries, right? Imagine if you just built a fort here and a fort there while doing all this. It's only like 1 or 2 turns to build a fort in a city. And why I like to sprinkle them in that way is because if I get rushed by somebody, and I'm talking I build a fort as early as like turn 25 or 30, you know, right around those time frames where you might see some early skirmishing. Like, I'll do it against Ninja. Like, the games I played against Ninja, I'll just build random forts. I'll build a quarry, then a fort. Then I'll build a mine, and then I'll build a fort. And then he's come at me, and I was actually able to propel him because of the forts. So something to think about. I think people should use forts more often. They're underrated. It's so weird. It's like Alcaraz and me are like one of the only 2 consistent, like, quote-unquote experienced players who seem to regularly use forts in our game. And he's actually demonstrating in one of his games the value of forts because he got attacked early. So I hope people take that lesson. However, on the flip side, that does lead to longer games and more stalemates, because the more people build forts, the harder it's going to be for anyone to gain a decisive edge when they decide to go kill you early in the game, which means the game's just going to last longer. So I apologize to the community if all of these games suddenly become, like, prolonged by another 2 hours because everybody starts building a fort meta. But, that's actually what I think makes them annoying. I think they should be nerfed. I don't think forts should be able to be built directly next to each other, unless it's across a river. But I actually think they should be nerfed a little bit. Alright, great question from chat. So bear with me for the experienced players. The question is, what do forts and walls do? So walls are pretty simple. Do I still have one under protection? Yeah, right here. A wall adds 10 HP to the city. So a city has 20 HP normally. This is going to add 10 HP. So also an additional family happiness thing, but that doesn't really matter. So if we take this spear over here, we come over here to Larsa, this is doing 2 damage. 2 damage out of 20, right? If you add another 10 HP on top of that, well, clearly it means this city is going to be much, much harder to take. But in keeping with what I was saying earlier, while that can have some strategic value, ultimately, you don't want your cities at risk to fall in the first place. So like Babylon did here, right? Babylon didn't need walls. Even this entire time, while the Hittites were slowly creeping towards them, Babylon did not build a wall in any of their cities. And then what happened once the battle started? Ignoring whether it was a good idea or good tactics on the Hittites' part, what happened once the battle started? Well, Babylonia was able to beat them in the field, push them back, and now they're going to go on the offensive. So that's the issue with walls. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes it can come in clutch, but it's a niche thing because ultimately you want to win the battle out in the open. If your city is under attack, that means you're already losing. That's why thinking like, oh, I'll build this wall for defense, it's like you're thinking about it wrong because you're basically planning for what if you lose a battle. Now, sometimes, again, that's valuable. So it is nuanced, but generally, like I said, I would rather players just never build walls and risk the consequences of that than consistently build walls and have it be a bad decision. Because sometimes it is a good idea to build a wall in the city. It's just a nuanced thing to wrap your head around. That's hard to explain. For forts, pretty straightforward. The fort gives you 50 defense on the tile. It's for all units, so it works for horses, not just infantry. And you will note that's even more defense than you would get as an infantry on an urban tile. So forts are even stronger than urban. They're basically like having a citadel on the ground. They're not vulnerable to siege because they don't count as urban. And if they're out in the open like this, they let you heal. You can heal on top of them. So, and then also importantly, in your own borders, they only take 1 turn to build on flat land. 2 turns on hills if you have the matching worker for the city. It's a very, very quick build. So you literally can just move a unit into position, right? Build a fort with a worker underneath him, and on the next turn, he's going to get a 50 defense buff against anything that kills him, or tries to kill him. As long as, obviously, he doesn't get killed on the 1 turn that the worker is trying to complete the fort. So they are fast, easy to pop up kind of emergency buttons, and these are the things that you want to build if you're under attack. You don't throw a wall up in your city. You might, but generally you won't throw a wall up in your city. But feel free to take a couple of workers and be like, oh shit, Hattie's coming towards me. Fort, put them in strategic locations, put a nice strong unit in it, and you are so much more safer. In a different game, we had a legionary. That is an 8 strength Roman unique unit. Alright, we're flanking here. We're going to kill this tactician, unfortunately. So we're going down. Going down hard. We're still similar. Yeah, and then this ruler's dead, which is unfortunate. Yeah, so in a different game, we had a legionary 8 strength unique unit for Rome with a bonus against melee units. And there was a fortified axe on a hill with Sentinel and Highlander. So that's not a fort. But that combat bonus is 45%, right? So just for reference, a fort is 50%. Defense, anyway. The legionary going into that axe only did 5 damage. So you can put yourself in a situation where a legionary can only do 5 damage or less to an axeman just because you built a fort. That's just nuts. They're crazy. All right. Babylon is fully committed to going on the offensive here. We've killed 1 unit, which included the ruler. We're taking out another warrior soon. Yep. We have mass Acadians protected by siege and spears. And the other thing to think about it too, every single city in the Hittite Empire built 1 wall. Every single city in the Hittite Empire could have instead built another swordsman, slinger, spear, or potentially a chariot. Which means, fighting in this battle over here, we would have twice as many units in the field as we are looking at currently after taking heavy losses. So it's a build queue thing. It's a opportunity cost thing. All right, not looking so hot for the Hittites. How many orders left on our Babylonian friends? 0. All right, so we'll be swapping now. But this is an example of a wall, just since we were talking about it. So this is an Akkadian archer. If I walk right up here, I'm going to do 3 damage to the city. And we can see that's going to take quite a bit of time to break into the city. So that's fair. Sometimes this will be valuable. But, not to belabor the point, but the issue is going to be, once Babylon, with their entire army, murders the entirety of the Hittite army, it's not going to matter if any of these cities have walls. Because buying time isn't going to achieve anything. Because the momentum will have swung too far in Babylon's favor. But sometimes, in fairness, just to cap off that whole rant, sometimes walls will come in clutch, especially if you have portcullis and you can manage to rush by with like a judge, both a wall and a moat. Moats are even better than walls. They add more health and extra defense to the city, I believe. So there are some situations where you can do stuff like that, and it will create a real headache for your opponent. And one good example of how making that work to your benefit is if you have siege. Because what you do is you park the siege behind the city, and then you're able to rain hellfire on anybody who tries to take the city, because it's going to take them forever to actually take the city. That's an example where the wall can work for you. But you really just need to have it set up correctly and, have the right mindset about it. But just arbitrarily building walls in every city is a horrible, horrible use of a build queue. And I'm done. That'll be the last I say on walls for this game, at least. Look at these dunes, by the way. Did anybody notice that these disappeared for like well over a year? Seriously, check a screenshot of any amount of desert from like a month ago, and you'll notice that the sand tiles look almost exactly like the arid tiles, the sand hill tiles, all right here. And now we have sand dunes back. Apparently something happened that caused these things to disappear. And they came back recently in the most recent patch. The most recent main update. Here's another example. Nice, crisp, actual sand dunes. Which are gorgeous. And it's really great to see. So, big fan of that. This worker! Oh my god. I didn't even notice this. Babylon just went around him, and he's letting him go about his business. I wonder if the Babylonian player can see this. The Babylonian player clicks on this guy. No, he can't. Okay, great. That would be funny. He's literally just letting this worker build a road. And hilariously, the Hittite player is still building the road. And I love this so much because I feel like that the army just kind of saw this worker humbly, you know, carving roads through the hillside and just kind of like walked by him fully armed and just gave him a head nod, you know? Just as you are, as you were. No big deal. Yeah, do you I agree. Would you murder the worker for the opinion penalty? Would you just keep allowing him to build the road and then walk on it? I think you just give him the head nod and keep moving on. Let him go about his business. That's incredible. I love that. That's so funny. And I actually kind of like too that the Hittites didn't bother with this, because look at this. 3 damage. 4 damage from this horse. This is a lot of effort just to kill 1 unit. Looks like we're going for it, though. So, yeah, this is the power of forts. We have Fierce. We also have Highlander. But that's basically 100, nearly 100% strength on this tile because of the fort. Something like 85% or something. That's why a 6 strength unique unit is only doing 3 damage to this thing. How much would it take in return? 8. Right? So forts can really, really, really turn the tide of a battle. Nice to have a couple of moments in a given game to highlight that, at least from a mechanical sense. Obviously, these forts and, this would, I hate to phrase it this way, but a waste of time for the Hittites and didn't work out. But I do respect the concept of what he was doing when he came out here and built these forts. It would have given him a staging area. The issue that he faced was after setting this all up, he didn't stage. And after not staging, or if he had staged, he could have invaded properly. But he wasn't able to invade properly because he never staged his army, I suppose, correctly. I still really like the idea that he came in here to try and cut off the retreat, but I think you needed to move up with way more units and leave just a little crack force of 3 or 4 units behind, kind of guarding this pass from your flank. And then, when you start seeing the guys move on, kind of send them to their death into the woods, and then just mass invade down at Durathara. So, cool concept. Poor execution. No! We killed the worker! I thought we had an agreement. Thought we had an understanding. Thought he was building a trade route for us. I suppose that's punishment for never actually completing the connection to Babylon. But in fairness, Babylon did not complete their connection to this tile either. So, everybody's messing up their roads. Not that it's a big deal. Oh, you know what? Actually, Fiddler, I'm going to point this out. You might have done that because you might think that these are now connected. I think you still believe... I think even for transport, you need to make sure that the road gets onto the same tile as the river to keep the consistent road-to-river tile movement. I do believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe stepping from this tile to this tile and moving along the river is actually going to count as disrupting the road in terms of movement. So something to think about, or at the very least investigate in the event that I'm wrong about that. But yeah, I think you're missing a road there, brother. Let's see if you did that anywhere else. Doesn't look like it. Fiddler has to stop soon, asking Hattie if they would like to stop for now. Okay. Ant is ready to call it for now. Looks like we will be continuing until about Wednesday. All right, we're going to be saving here. I'll take a save as well. And our players shall resume their position in a few days. And we will hopefully see the Babylonians bring the final end to the Hittite Empire. Oh, look, I missed this entirely with all the fun. They're building the lighthouse. So the Hittites actually have a... Oh, and they built the entire time. I've been paying attention to this development all down here this whole game that I completely missed that they built the ziggurat too. That's funny. So they built a ziggurat. They started on the lighthouse. So now I think, what are we going to try and do? Play defense and build up for points? I mean, at the rate they're going, that seems possible. I don't think they'll be able to hold against the might of the Babylonian Empire. Let's do a final breakdown before we end the stream. Wealth favors the Hittites, but both nations are very wealthy with nearly 10,000 or more wealth. Specialist favors the Hittites. Workers favors Babylon. Military produce favors Babylon. Lost. Wow. 4 units lost for the Babylonian. 12 for the Hittites. So they've just got massacred in this session. 8 laws on Babylon now. 4 to the Hittites. 25 technologies to 15. Rough position to be in. 92 improvements to 70. Let's look at the overall science here. We now have 6,000 science to 2,400 in favor of Babylon. Massive gap. And now the orders are favoring Babylon as well. So yeah, very strong dominant position for Babylon. I suspect we will close this out next session. We have ballistas. We have a road network courtesy of the Hittite Empire to show off our ballistas. 2 turns away. We have actually one that just came out. We can force march it. So I think we'll have a very brief session 3 with Babylonia just coming to knock down the doors of the Hittite Empire. Thank you guys very much for joining me live. The ones that are still in chat and the ones who popped in to say hello throughout the day. Of course, if you've been watching after the fact on YouTube, I hope you've enjoyed this session. And I hope you've been enjoying the tournament. Hop on the Old World Discord to join the conversation, or check out the official Old World YouTube channel to watch all of the casted footage of this game. I'm Scientific, and this has been the Old World Community Tournament. Take care.